So welcome to November 10th, 2020 City Council meeting. This meeting is being recorded by video and audio in accordance with the state open meeting law, consistent with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and banning gatherings of more than 10 people. This meeting will be conducted by remote participation. Additionally, all votes taken by the city council during this and future remote meetings will be by roll call vote. If you are calling in on a phone, you can press *9 to request to speak. If you are watching on a computer or a device, there is a raise hand button. Be sure to tap these or press *9 to request to speak during oral communications or the public hearing to be recognized to speak. In no particular order, from my left to right, we have Councilor Gilman, Councilor LeBlanc, Councilor Memhard, Councilor McCarthy, Councilor Holmgren, Councilor Pett, Councilor Cox, Councilor O'Hara, and Councilor Nolan in attendance this evening. We also have our mayor, Mayor Taken. We have our community development director, Jill Cahill. We have our CFO, John Dunn. We have our acting CAO, Vanessa Crozet. And who else do we have here? We have David Benjamin, and we have our always here city clerk, Joanne Cenas. So, Madam Clerk, we have the next order of business, please.
Next order of business is oral communications.
So under oral communications, the public shall have every opportunity at every regularly scheduled meeting to be heard under oral communications on matters not appearing on the agenda. Oral communications shall allow the resident who has a request for complaint of any nature relative to city business to appear before the council, state their problem without debate. The matters shall be referred to the proper agency through the office of the mayor. The resident will be notified within 2 weeks prior period relative to disposition of same. A copy shall be forwarded to the city council. Person speaking under oral communication shall be limited to 3 minutes each, and the council president shall not allow any complaints as to individual performances. So we have 16 panelists and we have 7 attendees. So is there anybody that would like to speak under oral communications? Okay, we have, let's see.
Steve, can you have everybody mute?
Steve,
Yeah, hold on one second.
yeah, can you have everybody mute, please?
All right, everybody mute. And I think, Joanne, you need to make me a co-host. Hold on one second. Oh, there we go. All right, so anybody would like to speak under oral communications? I just had Peggy Dillon. Hold on, let me see if I can allow her to speak. Nope. All right. Peggy, if you can hear me, you had your hand up a minute ago. I don't know if you wanted to speak under oral communications.
Oh my God.
All right.
You had that big smile when you came out.
All right, I just muted John. All right, anybody else would like to speak under oral communications? All righty. Madam Clerk, can we have the next order of business, please?
Next order of business is the consent agenda.
Are there any counselors that would like to pull anything off, matters off the consent agenda? Counselor Cox?
Item number 4 under mayor's report.
All right, is there anybody else? Okay, go ahead, Counselor Cox.
This item should be information only. When we passed the loan order, it allows us to accept all the grants without having to come back before this body to accept it. So it is for information only and not necessary to send to budget and finance.
Okay, so you like to pull it off of the budget and finance?
Correct.
Okay. All right, anybody else? So could I entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second,
Been moved by Councilor Cox and seconded by Councilor Holmgren. I'm going to call for the roll call. Councilor Memhard,
Yes.
Councilor Nolan,
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara,
Yes.
Councilor Pett. All right, I don't see Barry. We may have lost Barry. All right, we'll wait to see if he comes back on. Councilor Cox,
Yes.
Councilor Gilman,
yes.
Counselor Holmgren,
Yes.
Counselor LeBlanc, yes, and Counselor McCarthy.
Yes.
Motion passes to, oh, there's Barry. Barry, can you hear me? Hello, Barry. All right, I think Barry's frozen. So motion to accept the consent agenda as amended passes on a roll call.
This is the first 30 seconds, or 10 seconds I've heard of the meeting this evening. I have no idea what's going on.
Barry, is that you? All right, motion
Either that or
passes.
chipmunk.
Barry, are you here?
I'm here. Like I
All
said,
right.
I've heard nothing.
Just accepted the
I've heard
consent.
nothing of what's going on of the meeting from the start. And
Okay,
it just keeps on dropping me off.
all right, so at this point, we've had a motion to accept the consent agenda as amended. Counselor Cox pulled off an item that was supposed to go to BNF. But at this point, you weren't there for that, so I'm not going to allow you to vote. So motion passes on a roll call vote of 8 in favor, 1 technical difficulties. And Peggy Dillon, if you can hear me, I'll get back to you in 1 second. She has her hand up under oral communications, so I'm going to go back to that real quick. All right, so we do have a unanimous consent agenda. Has everybody had a chance to look at the unanimous consent agenda? All right, would anybody like to pull anything off the unanimous consent agenda? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the unanimous consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
And moved by Counselor Cox and seconded by Counselor Holmgren. I'll call for the roll call. Counselor Memhard,
Yes.
Counselor Nolan,
Yes.
Counselor O'Hara,
Yes.
Counselor Pat. All right, Barry's having a tough time tonight. Counselor Cox, we'll get back to Barry.
Yes.
I'll abstain. I have no idea what's going on.
Okay, Counselor Gilman,
Yes.
Counselor Holmgren,
Yes.
Counselor LeBlanc, yes, and Counselor McCarthy.
Yes.
Motion passes for the unanimous consent agenda on a roll call vote of 8 in favor, 1 technical difficulties. Without any objection, oh, Peggy Dillon had her hand up and it's back down. Let me see if I can,
She's still there.
all right, hold on 1 second. All right, Peggy, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, so hold on 1 second. Without objection, do you guys mind circling back to Peggy for oral communications?
Not at all.
Okay, great. Oral communications, Peggy, is that what you're here for?
Yes,
Okay, could you have your name and address for the record, please?
Peggy Dillon, Dillon, 10 Wells Street, Gloucester, Mass.
Go ahead, Peggy, thank you.
Okay, so I live at 10 Wells Street. Next door to me at 10 Commonwealth Ave is a 3-unit apartment, apartment building. 2 of the units are being used for Airbnb, and I have concerns about it being an Airbnb for 3 reasons. One, I live in an extremely densely populated neighborhood with an existing shortage of parking. Having multiple vehicles on the street from guests only compounds the problem for residents who have to park on the street. Number 2, having people come here from out of state, including from high-risk states, increases the chances of COVID-19 transmission, which undermines the city's efforts to fight the spread of the virus. And 3, the property owners are technically only supposed to have 1 rental, but 2 of their rentals are listed on Airbnb. So that's what I have to say. There's another neighbor who would like to speak for 3 minutes as well, who's right next to me. Is that possible?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Just as long as we get their name and address for the record.
Okay, here we go.
Okay,
Hi, I'm Beverly Palmacci, and I live at and own 8 Commonwealth Avenue, which is next to the building with the B&Bs.
Mhm.
I had attended the meeting at the library, I think it was 2 years ago, about the B&Bs being approved. We were informed that the Board of Health would be monitoring these operations, but with limited staff. And it's been my experience that calling the Board of Health does not result in a return call. So my concerns are the same as Peg's concerns. We have gone out and spoken to 11 neighbors in the surrounding area. They are all opposed to having B&Bs here, let alone it's a total of 14 overnight guests if both units are filled, and she rents them nightly. We have young people, college age, some of them look high school age, a lot of out-of-state plates, a lot of drinking. So I would appreciate it if the board could somehow help us, or if we could get help with someone. I assume that Councilor O'Hara has, who I had been in touch with, has given this information over to the Board of Health. As I said, I wasn't able to get a call back. The lady who owns the unit apparently claims to be living on the second floor. She is not. That's the largest unit. And on her Airbnb advertisement, I think she says it sleeps 9. And the top floor, which is apparently registered, sleeps 5. So that's our issue. As I said, of all the 11 people that we spoke with, no one is happy with this. We're all long-term residents. I've been here for 25 years. And this just isn't working. It's like living next door to a hotel. So, and I wondered if the city has any way to, do they have anybody assigned to kind of measuring the impact of these Airbnbs on people? Is there anyone collecting this information?
I don't think I don't think I have that, or any of us have that information, but we'll try to get that information to you with our response.
Okay, because I think that's really needed.
Okay,
If you live next to a hotel like this.
So it's the house on the corner of Commonwealth and Wells Street?
Wells, yes.
The old Piscatella
They're
house?
10.
Yeah.
I'm also on the corner of Commonwealth and Wells.
Yes,
I'm
yeah.
8.
They used to be 8K, remember?
Yes, of course I remember.
My old neighborhood.
Yeah.
All right, and I'll be in touch with you too to see what we can do, if I can help.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
All right, Beverly, thank you. And then thank you, Peggy.
Thank you very much.
All righty, we'll appreciate that. I'm glad you guys got to get in. All righty, so that was good. That's what we're here for, is to allow oral communications, have the public to speak. So I'm glad we got to circle back to them. I know it's a little bit of a chore with the technical difficulties, but we're going to do everything we can to try to get everybody recognized and speak during these meetings. So,
Counselor,
yes.
just real quick, I texted Peggy, we rode together. I just want to let her know that tomorrow's a holiday, so there might not be a
Okay.
immediate response, but just remind, because it's just an odd, weird Wednesday holiday.
Right.
So I wanted to let her know that.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have gone through the consent agenda and the unanimous consent agenda. So Madam Clerk, can we have the next order of business, please?
Next order of business is the Budget and Finance Standing Committee report of November 5th.
Thank you. Councilor Cox?
Hello, everybody. So I have a consent agenda that I put forward. If anybody has anything to pull off of that, speak now or forever hold your peace. Seeing none, I move the consent agenda.
Second.
All righty, it's been moved in second. Any other discussion, Councilor Cox?
Oh, there's just a lot of donations. So if everybody has a chance to read the consent agenda, and if you recognize anybody's names on there, to please thank them if you see them in the grocery store or at the park.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I will call for the roll call. Councilor Memhard,
Yes.
Councilor Nolan,
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara,
Yes.
Councilor Pett. Barry, you there?
He dropped off.
I could see him for a second. All right, so we're gonna wait. for
Has
him.
Barry tried calling in by phone separately?
I don't know. Next time he comes on, I'll see if he can, if I can get that information to him. Councilor Cox,
Yes.
Councilor Gilman,
Yes.
Councilor Holmgren,
Yes.
Councilor LeBlanc, yes. Councilor McCarthy,
Yes.
motion to accept the unanimous budget and finance consent agenda passes on a roll call vote of 8 in favor, 1 technical difficulties. All righty, Madam Clerk, next order of business, please.
All right, so I just want to mention the ordinance administration did not meet on November 2nd. So the next order of business is the Plan and Development Standing Committee report of November 4th.
All righty, thank you. Councilor Gilman.
Thank you, Counselor. Yes, I'd like to move to reconsider my vote of November 4th, 2020, and refer Special Council Permit 2020-005 37 Rocky Neck Ave back to P&D committee on November 18th, 2020.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilor Gilman and seconded by Council Holmgren.
So I'd
Council-
like to discuss if that's okay.
Go ahead. Yep.
So a question was posed at our meeting on November 4th. And it was regarding deed restriction in perpetuity in exchange for the commitment that the extra residential unit permit is contingent on the gallery space offered to the the Rocky Neck Art Colony. The owner, Mr. Mark Guterman, had brought that up, and in listening more about his concerns of a deed restriction, it seemed like we needed to bring it back to standing committee and discuss it in greater detail. I went back and checked the minutes of the meeting on October 21st, and several times it was specifically discussed about a condition added that would make sure that it would be given back to the Rocky Neck Art Colony. The space would be given to them. And it just seemed like this particular motion needed to be further developed in standing committee as opposed to tonight. And so I just think that it will be cleaner if we can go back to standing committee. And I hope that council agrees. And I feel sorry for people that might be on the call. But I will note that 3 of the 6 folks that we've received letters from are all very clear that they are supporting that this special council permit on the basis of the space being given in perpetuity to the Rocky Neck Art Colony. And I just want to make sure that we just spend a little bit more time before we bring it out here to prime time. So I'm hoping that councilors will support my motion. Thank you.
All righty. Councilor Cox, discussion.
So just a point of order, I don't think this is the time or place to be doing it. I think we should be doing it after we open the public hearing, and then the request would be made there. Your request for reconsideration is, I also don't believe that that's the process that should be followed. A reconsideration is after city council, not after a planning committee meeting, based on my past experience. And I think that we should move forward with opening the public hearing and listening the discussion, because I'm kind of lost as to where we're at with this and he said, she said kind of thing. I would like to have the public hearing, and then if we need to send it back to P&D, that we do that.
Okay, hold on, Councilor Gilman. I want to see what we have from the rest of the councils. And how does the, any other discussion from the rest of the council? All right, Councilor Gilman.
I just wanted to mention can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to mention to Councilor Cox that I understand her acknowledgement that typically reconsiderations come at the full council, and we're not filing for 211D, which is when it's a motion to adopt from the full council. What my reconsideration request is actually a procedural matter that is involved with our Robert's rules that it governs how we operate. And I actually got this suggestion from our attorney, Chip Payson, as the way that this should be adequately reconsidered. So I believe that I am doing the proper reconsideration. And personally, I think that we're better off to bring it back to subcommittee, work out the details of the conditions very carefully in subcommittee, and then bring it back to To the full committee for public hearing. Obviously, we can open the public hearing tonight and continue it, Councilor Cox. So I understand that, but this is just protocol, and I want to be very detailed about what is in front of us. I hope that the councilors agree.
Okay, so we have two different opinions here. We have Councilor Gilman's to bring it back to P&D. We have Councilor Cox to open the public hearing and listen to at least the better part of the public hearing to see whether this goes forward. So Councilor Gilman has a motion on the floor and it's been seconded. So this is kind of strange that we're gonna take a quick poll to, well, not a poll, but so Councilor Gilman has a motion on the floor to bring this back to P&D. So if there's no other discussion or no other input, we're going to call for the roll call. Is there anybody else that would like to say anything? Okay, so Councilor Cox, we do have a motion on the floor at this point.
Councilor, I think Councilor McCarthy just raised his hand.
Councilor McCarthy, did you raise your hand?
I did.
Go ahead.
In reviewing this, it just seems like to me this should go back to committee, and I'm going to support that. I think there are details. I don't think it's something that can't be done, but I think there are details that should be worked out at the committee level.
Okay.
I'm not objecting to it going back to committee. What I'm objecting to is the process in which we're taking right now.
Right.
We should open the public hearing and then Val should be making her motion at that point. This, I mean, we're completely out of order.
I agree. I kind of agree with Councilor Cox too. I think we may have got to the public hearing part of it. This shouldn't have. I'm not sure what Chip, our general counsel, has said to Councilor Gilman, but from my experience, when it came to the public hearing part, that maybe this should have been continued, but we're at this point. I think there's several people on the meeting. So I think that was Councilor Gilman's intention, is not to have these people wait till the public hearing part of this. And we are where we are at this point. So without any objection, I'm going to call for the roll call vote. All right, seeing none. Council, so this is to bounce it back to planning and development. Councilor Memhard?
I'm going to say no. I don't think it makes a big difference one way or the other, but we should move ahead. So I'd say no.
All right, Councilor Nolan?
Nope.
Councilor O'Hara?
Yes.
Councilor Pett, are you with me? All right, Councilor Cox?
No,
Councilor Gilman?
Yes,
Councilor Holmgren?
No,
Councilor LeBlanc? I'm kind of torn between this, but I can see where this is heading, so I'm gonna vote to have this move forward with the public hearing part of it, because I think we're gonna be on the losing end anyway. And Councilor McCarthy?
Yes.
All right, so yes, so we have 1, 2, 3 in favor, 1, 2.
Harry's
3,
back
4.
with you.
All right, yeah, but I don't think he was part of this, so I don't feel comfortable having Barry vote on something that he wasn't here for the whole time.
Steve,
Yeah, Councilor Nolan?
I'd like to change my vote to yes.
All right. All right, so we have, so Sean, you wanted to go back to planning and development?
Yes.
4, and so we have 4 opposed and 4 in favor. So we're deadlocked here. So Joanne, how do we proceed with this? Because I don't think I've ever encountered anything like this before, because we have a even.
Councilor Holgram has her hand up.
Oh, Council Holmgren?
I guess I'm just a little confused, and maybe it's because I'm not as experienced in parliamentary procedure as some of you, but I'm confused as to why we can't hammer this out at the public hearing. If one of you could help me with this, I appreciate it.
So on the planning and development part of it, I'm going to take a quick stab at it. Nothing too technical. So Attorney Favaza had stated his purpose. Council McCarthy had asked a question, and the applicant for the Rocky Neck Art Association I think was kind of a little bit confused about the question Councilor McCarthy had asked. So it was kind of off topic on what was said at the planning and development part of it. I think it was just a feeling at the moment that was reiterated at the planning and development, but I don't see a problem having the public hearing. And then if we do have questions, we can bounce it back to planning and development at this point.
Yeah.
But we still have 4 in favor, 4 opposed. And I
Thank
need
you.
Joanne, hold on one second. Councilor Cox?
You're gonna have to open and continue the public hearing anyway.
Right.
I feel like this should be part of that public hearing and not a preamble to it.
Well,
All
right, well.
I know we're already where we are, but
Okay. So the best way to do this is to do it cleanly. And Councilor Gilman, if you want to withdraw your motion, and then we can open the public hearing and have this at the public hearing part of it. That would probably be the cleanest way to do it, because we do have a motion in a second, and we voted on this at this point, and it's deadlocked. So the cleanest way to do this would be to withdraw the motion to send it back to P&D. We'll get to the public hearing part of it. We'll open it up. We'll have this discussion, and then we can figure out whether we're going to send it back at that point. How do you feel about that?
If we need to get out of the deadlock, that's fine. I'm really not comfortable voting tonight on this because we have additional information that came in from, we can talk about that in the discussion. So I move to withdraw my motion to withdraw until such time as we conduct the public hearing, and I so move.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilor Gilman, seconded by Councilor Holmgren. All right, so motion to withdraw. We're going to have to do a roll call vote again. Councilor Memhard?
Yes.
Councilor Nolan?
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara?
Yes.
Councilor Pat? Barry's not here. Councilor Cox?
yes.
Councilor Gilman?
Yes.
Councilor Holmgren?
Yes.
Councilor LeBlanc? Yes, and Councilor McCarthy.
Yes.
Motion passes to withdraw the previous motion on a roll call vote with 8 in favor, 1 technical difficulties. Okay, so this was a first for myself, and I'm sure it was a first for all of us. So we'll have to figure out next time this happens, the proper procedure on a deadlock to where it has, because I'm kind of leaning toward if it doesn't pass, it fails. So that was the roll call vote, was 4 in favor, 4 opposed. But the consent was to get it to the public hearing, and we'll go from there. All right, Councilor Cox.
So I guess if the chair would elaborate on the reasons for asking in the statement she made just now that there was new information, that wasn't part of the consideration topic earlier. So I guess it's just unclear on why they're asking for it to be sent back. If that could be elaborated on after you open the public hearing, I think all of us would be most grateful, because none of us don't want to see it sent back to do the right thing, but it's just, it's turned out to be very confusing in the last 24 hours of the information that's come out. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Pat, are you with us?
I am now on by phone, I guess.
All right, so let me get you up to speed. We had a motion to bring back the, we've already voted to move forward with the public hearing part of it, and we'll get to that, but we had a motion.
The public hearing part of what?
Hold on one second. So the special council permit for Rocky Neck, was Val had made a motion and it was a deadlock without having you there. So we voted to proceed with the public hearing and have this conversation at the public hearing part of it. I wouldn't allow you to vote during that because you missed the greater part of things. So we're going to get to the public hearing part of that and we'll have this conversation again. Is that understood?
Okay, it's understood. Like I said, this is the first I'm hearing of any part of this evening's meeting. So
Yep,
I guess
not a
I'll
problem.
just
Yep,
hang out here.
As long as you're here now, you'll be fine. Okay? So stay tuned.
Yep.
All right. So Madam Clerk, we have the next order of business, please.
Next order of business is the first scheduled public hearing 2020-010, Special City Council Permit 2020-002, Essex Avenue, number 99A, map 216, lot 126, Gloucester zoning ordinance, section 1.8.3, standard to be applied, section 3.1.6, parentheses B, building heights in excess of 35 feet, section 2.3.4, parentheses 13, marine-related service, storage, or repair limited primarily in the MI district to commercial fishing vessels, and section 5.5, lowland requirements, section 5.5.2, and section 5.5.3 in the EV district.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'm going to open the public hearing and continue it to January 12th, 2021. All right, Madam Clerk, next order of business, please.
Next order of business is public hearing 2020-030, Special City Council Permit 2020-005, Rocky Neck Avenue, number 37, map 130, lot 4A, Gloucester zoning ordinance, sections 2.3.17, conversion to or new multifamily or apartment dwelling, 4 to 6 dwelling units, and 3.2, sorry. 3.2 dimensional tables, reduction in minimum lot area and open space per dwelling units to create a fourth unit in the NB zone.
All righty, so we're back at Rocky Neck Avenue and I'm going to open the public hearing and ask if there is anybody that would like to speak in favor. Attorney Favaza.
Thank you. Do I have permission to share my screen so I can put up a PowerPoint?
Yeah, let me get to you. Joanne, do you want to get Joel to screen share?
You should be all set now.
All right, go ahead, Joel.
Okay, is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes.
Is everyone able to see my fake laser pointer?
Vaguely, yes. If you move it slowly, we'll be able to see it a lot better.
Understood. Okay, so good evening. For the record, my name is Joel Favaza. I am an attorney at Seaside Legal Solutions, address of 123 Main Street here in Gloucester. I am here on behalf of Mark Getteman and the Getteman family, owner of 37 Rocky Neck Avenue here in Gloucester as well. Proposed work that we're looking to have permitted is to add skylights and a dormer to an existing mixed-use condominium building, which would allow the creation of an additional dwelling unit in the building. This is just another shot. The work in red, you see the skylight from the street view and the dormer from the water view. Quick background, we're in the neighborhood business district, which pulls in the R10 dimensional requirements because the neighborhood business district doesn't have any of its own. The lot is non-conforming, the existing structure is non-conforming, but all of the non-conformities were handled originally back in 1989 by the Zoning Board of Appeals under what's called the special exception section of the zoning board of the zoning ordinance. Very few properties fall under it, but fortunately this property does. And the zoning board recently in May of this year reaffirmed that relief and modified it to allow for the creation of the fourth unit in the building. So it's currently a condominium building and it stretches from, if you're on Rocky Neck Avenue, it stretches from the gravel parking lot that you saw to the right of the Getteman unit, all the way down to the wooden deck after the Meager Gallery and before the ice cream shop. And inside that entire building, there are currently 3 residential units and 3 commercial units. As you probably know, the Gedimins unit has been used historically as the Gedimin Gallery by my client's deceased parents. Judy and Gordon were heavily involved in the community down on the neck, and Mark's intention is to continue the presence of this gallery space. And the idea is that rather than rent it out at market rate or try and make a profit selling artwork of his parents, other artists, he's looking to have the Rocky Neck Art Colony or a similar organization or something geared toward the arts use the space basically at cost. So they'd be asked to cover the utilities and that sort of thing, but otherwise Mark would not be charging them rent. To make up for the loss in rental potential of the front two gallery rooms, he's looking to improve the apartments and formalize the legality of one of the apartments that already exists on site to enable him to be able to carry the cost of the unit itself. Again, as I mentioned, we were just at the ZBA back in May of this year. We had no opposition at that time, and we had several neighbors speak in favor. We got a unanimous vote from the ZBA. And so now we're here before you looking for 3 pieces of relief. One is a special permit for use. And then we also need a reduction in lot area per dwelling unit and a reduction in open space per dwelling unit. And I have on screen the exact numbers as far as the requirement and what we have and what we need. I'll flip through these. These are just the plans that were submitted, and I include them here in case there's a question. We can go back and refer to them. The red is the limited amount of work from the exterior that you'll see on the 3rd level, the roof level rather. And now we'll quickly get to the standards that need to be applied. So the first one is for the use permit. That's everyone's favorite, section 1.8.3 with the 6-factor test. So if you run down that list, we are adding a unit of needed housing. If you go to your 2017 housing production plan, which called for about 600 new units of housing, this meets that community and economic need. As far as traffic flow and safety, from a pragmatic approach, there's parking for up to 4 cars off street for the building. It's a large lot, about 500 feet away. And as far as the technical requirement, the ZBA has already granted relief excusing this building from meeting the requirement under the GZO for off-street parking. We are in a developed neighborhood, so the adequacy of utilities and other public services is not going to be an issue. And then when you look at the neighborhood character and the social structure, we are in America's oldest continuing art colony, and there are several condo units throughout the neck, and there are also several mixed-use buildings like this throughout the neck. There'll be no appreciable impact on the natural environment. The building is where it is. There will be, however, improved public access to the waterfront, and that was actually a condition of the ZBA relief. One of the neighbors mentioned that a sign that alerts pedestrians they have access to the waterfront on this property had kind of become overgrown by some vegetation, and my client has already cleaned that vegetation up and had the sign refurbished to make sure that people can clearly see they have access to the waterfront across this property. And then we get the potential fiscal impact. Of course, you'll have increased tax revenue to the city of Gloucester, and it allows the owner to maintain the gallery space on the 1st level while not hemorrhaging money running the unit itself. You also have section 322A to apply when looking at the reductions requested for lot area per dwelling unit and open space. And you just have to make a finding that the reduction we're requesting is in keeping with the neighborhood character and structural density. And so again, if you look at Rocky Neck, there are a lot of buildings crowded at the sidewalk. The density is not dissimilar to other properties, and the increase in unit count will likely not be noticed because for those who came to the site visit, the units are there essentially now. And so it really won't be any sort of sea change for the neighborhood in allowing that unit to be, formally recognized. And this is the big question mark, was an additional condition. So it came up at ZBA and it came up again at P&D. So Mark's concern and Mark's quest is to honor his parents' legacy. He's committed to making sure that the gallery remains a gallery. And there was a question raised by Councilor McCarthy as to whether there should be some sort of perpetual condition making sure that if my client were to sell the property or, you know, in a few years, maybe people have cycled up the council, maybe a new building inspector, to make sure that there's something that shows this was the deal. And so, you know, my client's point of view is he's going to do this either way. But if the council is concerned and wants to add a special condition, I submitted earlier today, and it's here on this slide. I'd be happy to provide it elsewhere as needed. Just a condition that says, as long as this permit granting the extra unit is in play, those front 2 rooms have to be used as a gallery or a similar use related to the production, preservation, or display of art. And, you know, make sure that Mark is not able to charge a market rent, but does allow him to, of course, you know, seek to require whoever is using the gallery space to make sure they're insured and cover their utility bills, that sort of thing. And there's a little catch at the end that says, if for whatever reason this use should stop, you know, Mark would either have to, you know, get rid of the extra unit or come back before the council and have a discussion about what else could be done, you know, with the use of this mixed use building. And again, throughout the process, we've been using Rocky Neck Art Colony because in all likelihood, that's who it's going to be. They've been in talks with Mark for quite some time. You know, they have a lot of interesting ideas about how to use this space. But when the request was, well, would you take a restriction saying it had to be for their use? That's problematic for my client in that if the Rocky Neck Art Colony says, you know what, Mark, you know, 3 years from now, it's been great, but we found some other space we want to use. We don't need your gallery next year. We wouldn't want this permit to terminate because now all of a sudden the Rocky Neck Art Colony isn't using it. So that's why if you are concerned and want a condition, we would just have a condition like this that says it would be used for the production, preservation, and display of art for public enjoyment and or retail sales related thereto.
Joel, can you read that entire
Sure.
condition just so we have it on the record, please?
Sure.
Thank
Special condition. So this would be in any hypothetical written decision if we're lucky enough to get relief. And it says, this relief granted by this city council special permit is conditioned upon petitioner maintaining the quote unquote front 2 rooms on the first floor of petitioner's condominium unit, hereinafter the gallery, for use as a gallery or other use related to the production, preservation, or display of art for public enjoyment and or retail sales related thereto. Petitioner may allow third parties to operate the gallery, provided that petitioner does not charge such third parties rent. However, petitioner may require such third parties carry their own liability and hazard insurance and cover the actual cost of utilities consumed by the gallery. Should such use cease, petitioner shall have 90 days to seek modification of the city council special permit, failing which this city council special permit shall terminate and be of no further force and effect.
Thank you.
Okay. And so just to wrap up, we're looking at minor physical alterations. I think this is an admirable goal to try and preserve gallery space on Rocky Neck. I think the standards for the special permit have been met. And again, if the council is concerned, you know, we're offering a condition that we'd be willing to take. Like I said, Mark's going to do this one way or the other if he's fortunate enough to be able to go forward. And we'll leave that up to the council to decide how they'd like to move forward. So I thank you once again. I'll end my screen share. And obviously, if anyone has questions, I can always pop it back up.
All right, Joel, we'll get to councilor questions shortly. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in favor? All right, hold on 1 second. Karen, can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Can we have your name and address for the record, please?
Sure thing. It's Karen Ristabin, 210 East Main Street.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to speak out in favor, strongly in favor of Mark's petition. He has been, I was the president of the Rocky Neck Art Colony for 10 years, and I've been on the board now for the last 2 years. And in the 12 years that I've been involved with the Art Colony, I've seen an increasing number of artists being unable to have a presence on Rocky Neck because of the, you know, the crazy real estate prices. They cannot afford to live there or live and work there. So we as an art colony, as an organization, have been able to support many artists in the common spaces, in the Cultural Center Gallery and Gallery 53, because we are an established organization. This kind of gesture on the part of a local resident who's so committed to the continuing art in the art colony is, to me, emblematic of what the community can do to preserve such a treasure as Rocky Neck is, and such an important destination as Rocky Neck is for the whole community of Gloucester. You know, it's a really, really great example of what private homeowners can do in the face of incredibly high rising real estate values in Rocky Neck that are out of sight for artists. So to me, it's an admirable thing, and we're incredibly grateful to Mark Edelman and his family for thinking of doing this, and very strongly support the petition.
Thank you, Karen. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in favor? All right, hold on 1 second. Ruth, can you hear me?
Yes,
Name and address for the record, please.
Ruth Mordecai, 4 Terrace Lane,
Go ahead.
Rocky Neck in Gloucester.
Yep, go ahead.
So I second what Karen said. She said it beautifully. I live a block away. This site of the Geddeman's gallery space is really at the entrance to Rocky Neck. So it's kind of a placeholder for us, that when you come into the neck, that there would be this space that would be designated for art. So, and Mark, I applaud his wanting to keep the legacy of his parents. And we have been faced with a lot of loss of gallery and studio space. So this is really crucial for us. So thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. All right, I'm gonna, hold on 1 second. All right, Kathy, are you there?
Yes, hi.
Hi, name and address for the record, please.
My name is Kathleen Archer, and I'm at 20 Washington Street in Beverly, Massachusetts. I'm the president of the Rocky Neck Art Colony, and I'd like to speak in favor of Mark's grand gesture as well. Right now, we have probably, with the Cultural Center, the greatest board of volunteers helping us to maintain what had previously been a much more thriving art colony on Rocky Neck. We have about 200 members, people that would like more space to show their work, and Mark has provided that for us. But also, just personally, the reason that I opened a gallery on the Madfish Wharf in prior years, and the reason I came to Rocky Neck and came involved was because of Mark's parents, Gordon and Judy Geddeman. And the fact that Mark wants to promote this in his parents' name just means so much to me personally, but also to the entire colony. So I'd just like to join the people that are in favor of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, we have a caller. So caller, last 4 digits are 1709. Could we have your name and address for the record, please?
Hey, happy evening. Brenda Malloy, 43 Rocky Neck Ave.
Hi, Brenda.
I've had a gallery just down the street from the Geddeman since 2002, and I have witnessed many, many galleries on Rocky Neck that have now become private living spaces, and much to the demise of the art colony itself. There really is a need to do whatever we can do to help preserve the galleries on Rocky Neck. And I think that the opportunity to have the Geddeman Gallery continue to be a gallery would be really important and crucial to the health of the Rocky Neck art colony, especially now where, you know, where we just have lost a lot of gallery space. So I support it 100% as a neighbor who lives about 100 feet away, and I think it's awesome, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. All right, is there anybody else that would like to speak in favor? If so, I'm just gonna restate that if you are calling in on a telephone, you can press *9, and if you are listening on a device or a computer or laptop, there is a raise hand button. So if anybody would like to speak at this point, you can press *9, or there's a raise hand button for me to acknowledge. All right, seeing none. Is there anybody that would like to speak in opposition? Once again, if you're calling in, *9, and if you're on a device or computer, there's a raise hand button. Anybody in opposition? Okay, seeing none. Madam Clerk, are there any communications?
Yes. We received communications in support from Tom Cox, Brenda Malloy, Ruth Mordecai, Jane Adams, Ann Rosenfeld, and Richard Gold.
All right. Do we have any councilor questions? Councilor Cox.
Thank you. This is for Attorney Favaza. In your original application, it stated the reason why you wanted to add the apartment is so you could preserve the gallery space down below, but it was never the intent of you or your client to have it be a condition of the application, correct?
Yeah, we didn't anticipate it would be a condition, but certainly it was the reasoning behind the request.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other councilor questions? Councilor Gilman?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions to Attorney Favaza. So one of my questions is regarding the presentation made at the ZBA meeting as reflected in the minutes of May 28th, 2020. I've since looked back to see the minutes, and it clearly stated in the minutes that you said the art gallery will be used by the Rocky Neck Art Colony. There was no discussion back then about a broader condition that has been presented today, which gives me a little bit of angst, because therefore my reasoning to bring it back to subcommittee, because the letters that you received back then was specific to the Rocky Neck Art Colony. It was earmarked for the Rocky Neck Art Colony. Further, the letters in support that we've received for this round recently, which include Brenda Malloy, Ruth Mordecai, who has spoken tonight, as well as Jane Adams, they all specifically reference to be used by the Rocky Neck Art Colony. Okay, so my question to you is that acceptable to all these people that have written letters of support, including back at the ZBA, that now there's a broader interpretation as presented by a condition that you shared with us about 2 hours ago to most counselors? And the broader definition is, I took a screenshot of it because the relief granted by the City Council special permit is conditioned upon petitioner maintaining the front 2 rooms on the first floor of the petitioner's condominium unit for use as a gallery or other use related to the production, preservation, or display of art for public enjoyment and or retail sales related thereto. Petitioner may allow third parties to operate the gallery provided that petitioner does not change such third parties' rent. However, petitioner may require such third parties carry their own liability and hazard insurance and cover the actual cost of utilities consumed by the gallery. Should such use cease, petitioner shall have 90 days to seek modification of the City Council special permit, failing which the City Council special permit shall terminate and be of no further force and effect. My personal issue, Attorney Favaza, right now is that I wish that we had an opportunity to vet this more back in subcommittee.
Councilor Gilman?
Yeah.
I don't mean to cut you off. We're at councilor questions. Are you asking Attorney Favaza this question?
I am.
I don't want to get into the whole debate part of it yet, because we're not into that part. This is just counselor questions, so.
It's a question to
Yeah.
Attorney Favazza.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
we'll allow him, because I don't want you to
I got it.
tilt
I'm
your
with you.
hand. Okay.
I'm
okay.
I'm with you. Thank you.
I'm just trying to be, follow the rules here. So, Attorney Cavazza?
Sure. So to Councilor Gilman's points, obviously I'll start off by saying, I don't speak for anybody except for my client, but I will point out that this condition that was put out there, that is something that will be required, was just presented to everybody who just spoke in favor after this was put out there, okay? Secondly, the difference is that a lot of work at the ZBA, and there's usually a driving reason why somebody is going to the ZBA to ask for relief. So for example, an elderly couple might say, we'd like to build an addition because our adult children are moving in with us, something like that. And so that's the reason. And you state that, my adult children are moving in and that's why I'd like the addition. But there's never a condition that says this permit is good only so long as your adult children are living here. Because if that was the case, then there'd have a much broader condition that says, okay, this is, allowable for a family of no more than X people, et cetera, et cetera. So oftentimes through permitting, you explain the narrative as to what is driving this. And that remains, Mark is hoping that the Rocky Neck Art Colony, from all accounts from tonight, speaking both to my client and from the people who spoke in favor tonight, the Rocky Neck Art Colony is very interested in taking this space over and putting it to use. And that's fine. There's no misrepresentation. There's no intent to bait and switch here. That is the plan. That is what is driving this. Mark has been in talks with them for quite some time, and everyone, is on board. But if this is going to go to where there is a condition that says, this permit hinges on something and gets revoked if something stops happening, then it has to broaden out. Again, the simple example being, we don't want the Rocky Neck Art Colony, if they decide, we don't need this space, just by doing that, if the condition is it must be used by Rocky Neck Art Colony, them wishing to leave would then invalidate my client's permit. So there is, this is the narrative that is driving this. This is the intent of my client. This is what is likely to happen upon granting this relief. It'd be the Rocky Neck Art Colony utilizing this space. However, if we need a condition for this permit to trip on, it needs to be broad enough to be reasonable that there be some flexibility in still achieving the overall purpose of making sure it remains a gallery space for the public to enjoy.
Thank you, Joel. Council Gilman?
You don't want me to discuss, so I have no further questions to ask of the attorney.
Okay. Council Nolan?
I have a question for Joel and then maybe for Greg or Bill Sanborn if they're available. How many commercial permits do they have in that building now, and how many legal residential permits do they have?
So right now, the legal use of the building is, there are 3 commercial uses, 3 galleries, and 3 residential uses. That was, the setup, I believe, back when this property was first put through zoning, quite some time ago. And that's the way it stayed. And this would be, again, the reality, as we all kind of saw from the site visit, is that, there's already kind of the space there for the 2 apartment units. And so to a degree, this is part of, kind of correcting, a potential issue that's already kind of out there. This isn't, we're not taking an abandoned attic and all of a sudden putting up walls. It's kind of just fitting out a space that's kind of right there. But technically, it's supposed to be 3 galleries, 3 apartments, and this would go to 3 galleries and 4 apartments legally.
And that's what's on the books right now is 3 occupancy permits for resident and 3 for business.
I would venture a guess. I don't know the answer. I'd be surprised if some of the city departments, the inspectional services, were not aware of the other space. But I don't want to do that for sure. That could be a rare instance in which they were not aware. But right now, it's supposed to be 3 and 3 on paper.
And do we have Greg Canavatoria or Bill Sanborn on the call at all?
We don't.
Thank you.
Sorry.
For what it's worth, this application was reviewed at ZBA by Bill Sanborn. It was reviewed again before it was submitted to the City Council by Bill Sanborn and Greg Cavanatori. And Bill and I were discussing this recently as part of a P&D question that had gone out related to other relief for this project. And so he's certainly aware of it and has not raised any flags.
Okay,
Thank you,
so
Joel.
Any other councilor questions? Council McCarthy?
Yes, for Attorney Favaza. So looking back to the initial 1021 P&D meeting, I mean, it's pretty clear in the minutes that it was going to the Rocky Neck Art Colony. And I understand from the last meeting that may have changed. But what my question is, if they drop out, who would oversee this? I mean, whose responsibility would it be to see that this is perpetuated to the end of time? I mean, obviously, Mr. Getterman's a reputable person in the community down there, but we don't know that the building doesn't get sold. And who would be there to make sure that this agreement is, I mean, also it says may in there, and I think it should say shall in your draft. But I mean, I think there are several things that need to be worked out to protect the art colony and to protect the integrity of this agreement.
Sure. So I think there are two answers. There's the technical legal answer, which is that the inspector of buildings through his department and with the zoning enforcement apparatus as well, they would be the ones to monitor and ensure compliance as they are with every bit of relief that the City Council grants or the zoning board grants or any other board grants. It's up to the building department and the building inspector to make sure that they're being followed. From a practical standpoint, because this is Rocky Neck, you would have an extra layer of protection in that if Mark or any future owner of the property shut down the gallery use, you better believe that someone's going to make that known to the city hall, right? Rocky Neck is not going to, just sit quietly while someone flaunts this permit, is my guess. I can't predict the future, but based on I lived down there. I was fortunate to live down there for a season and run a small business down there for a few others. And the passion that is down there for preserving the art colony. Again, although you have legal protection from the building inspector's office, I think you have practical protection from the neighborhood itself. That if all of a sudden the Getterman Gallery was closing, you'd hear about it. It would be an issue. The fact that the Getterman Gallery's hearing tonight made the front page of the Times today, I think kind of indicates this is not something that is not paid attention to. As far as the may or shall, that's probably an easy thing to correct, but you'd have this special permit recorded at the Registry of Deeds. Anybody who purchased this from my client would be bound by it. That's the way the law works. The building department would be in charge of enforcing it, and you'd have neighborhood watch helping to make sure that if anything was going awry, the building department was alerted to it.
All right, thank you, Joel. Any other councilor questions? Councilor Cox?
Councilor Favaz, I need to be very clear about what is being offered by you and your client. In the original application, there is no this for that. I don't see that in the application. You stated a reason as to why you were applying for the special city council permit for the relief. It was not a condition from you or your client that you could get the relief if it remained a gallery down below. I guess I really need to make sure, because when I first asked the question, you said no, that wasn't the case. But you're answering questions from Councilor McCarthy and Councilor Gilman as if this special city council permit is a condition on whether or not that gallery stays in place. And it was the reason behind the special permit but not, you were not offering it up as a condition. It was what he wanted to do with the property. So therefore, we should not be entertaining questions about who's running it, or, I mean, we need to stick to the fact of the matter is that you're requesting a special city council permit for relief, period. Not asking for it on the condition that the gallery is going to remain the gallery. Is that correct?
So that is correct. The reason that I've been answering these questions is that there is, I can't predict the future, but there seems to be some concern, and I have some concern that my client may not get through this process successfully without offering this. It seems to be something that is important to some of the counselors. And if that, if the counselor is a no vote unless this condition exists, well, then my client will offer that condition. Because again, at the end of the day, he intends to use it as a gallery either way. But you're right, it's not in the application. It was not, offered initially because that's just not the way this typically works. But again, if that's the difference between this going through and this not going through, my client would like to see it go through and he's willing to offer it. But that's why it was not in the original application, because that was not originally part of what we thought would need to be produced.
So you got through ZBA without having that be a condition. And then you got to city council, and at the committee level, it was suggested that this might grant you the relief that you need if you were willing to put this into a commercial space in perpetuity and have it run by anyone as a condition of approval.
So close. We got through ZBA without it being an express condition, and then at P&D, Councilor McCarthy raised the issue of, as he did tonight, also making sure that, I think, and again, I'm not speaking of Councilor McCarthy, but I think his concern is that someone, Mark could do this with the best of intentions, and then, maybe he falls ill, and a couple of years from now he sells the property, and the new buyer closes the gallery immediately, and just takes advantage of the fact that he has these two apartments that, were theoretically, granted in part on the representation that the gallery would be preserved. And now there's no enforcement mechanism. And it seems, like the purpose has kind of gone away. And so in response, that's where this proposed condition came that I drafted, saying, okay, if we have to try and nail this down and put this into writing, that's where it got a little broader about being used as a gallery generic, not the Rocky Neck Art Colony's gallery. Again, the proposal remains the same, and if this goes through, I think you'll see the Rocky Neck Art Colony, move into that space, or move someone into that space, or move something into that space, that continues their purpose. But if there are councilors who say my yes vote only comes with a condition that goes into this permit in writing, then the language I provided is what would be acceptable to my client, and hopefully still address the concerns of those counselors who have such concerns.
Just another real quick question. When reviewing the ZBA minutes, I see your name on multiple applications. So to you, you've handled many of these types of zoning relief, and you've been before the council before for special city council permits. Have you ever been asked on any of those other requests for relief to make it a condition that something be something that's that in order to get the relief?
I believe that, for instance, in-law apartments have to be conditioned that they're used by immediate family members. So there are instances in which a condition sits on it. I honestly, I've been doing this for 10 years, and you're right, I'm at the zoning board a lot. I can't think of an exact situation, but I don't dare say no, because there have been some weird ones that have come through. I think, actually, coincidentally enough, we got a use variance for the old Giles Chapel on Rocky Neck for use by the Rocky Neck Art Colony. And I think that use variance was conditioned in part on, the Rocky Neck Art Colony doing some specific things to it. But that was a use variance, and that's a really bizarre piece of relief anyway. So I don't want to say, no, I've never done it, but I would say typically when seeking relief from permit granting authorities, the narrative explains the request, but doesn't often, the conditions are the size, the shape, the use, right? You can't say, hey, I'd like 2 apartments and a gallery, and then Mark goes and builds, an addition that isn't permitted or adds another apartment, a 3rd apartment that's not permitted. All that would be outside the bounds. But the use generic is there. He said, I'd like to, have an additional apartment use, and here's why.
Okay.
And in your,
Hold on, Councilor Cox, before we keep going with you, you've taken up just a little bit of portion of this. I'm going to ask anybody else, and then I'll get right back to you. If there are
Okay.
no other questions. Do we have any other councilor questions? No, Councilor Pat?
Yeah, I keep on, dropping out here, and I'm just being able to hear the phone part of this. And I believe I've heard a number of the councilors have asked the question about restrictions on the gallery portion being a part of the reason to give the relief and grant the permit. Is that correct? That's what I've been hearing from people. I'm having a very difficult time this evening.
All right, so hold on one second. Yes, it is part of the process that Attorney Favaza has stated. I hate to say it, but if you've been coming in and out, I don't think you're going to be able to vote on this, Barry, if you haven't heard the whole thing. But
Right.
Attorney Favaza has asked for a special condition for the relief granted by the City Council on special permit on condition upon the petitioner maintaining the front 2 rooms of this first floor petitions of the condominium unit, the gallery, for use as a gallery, and anything else that other than that would have to come back for a special council permit. So, or have to be 90 days, I would have to come back for the council. So I hate to say it, Barry, but if you haven't been part of the whole conversation, you're not going to be able to vote on this.
Right. No, I understand that. That's the problem. It's a very important issue, and I'm not sure why. I have no idea why, but for some reason I'm able to do everything else on my computer, but on my council iPad here, I'm apologizing. I missed things.
I'm glad you came forward instead of having a rogue vote, not knowing exactly what you were voting on. So, but Attorney Favaza has put in a special condition that wasn't in the permit to, if any other use of these 2 front rooms were going to be anything else, it would have to come back back before the council. So, all right. Are there any other councilor questions? Councilor McCarthy.
Yeah, for Attorney Favaza, just to clarify, did I ever ask you to condition this, or was this volunteered by you? And did I just ask you to explain how this would be kept in perpetual?
Councilor McCarthy, I think the issue began, and I don't want to categorize it as a request or whether it was a suggestion, but P&D, you brought up the idea of a deed restriction, and that was kind of what set this all in motion. Again, part of your concern, I think, remains enforcement and making sure that, if you choose to grant it, that it can't be subverted, in the future. And so when you had mentioned deed restriction, that seemed, that was a bit too far from a title perspective as far as my client could accept. And so we came back and said, if the concern is making sure that this gallery space is locked into this permit, we would offer this condition. So that was correct. You did not ask for a special condition. You suggested or referred to a deed restriction, and this was in response to that, because a deed restriction would be too severe.
Okay, but just a quick follow-up. Everything that you're proposing about turning this gallery over free of charge to anybody came from you and not a condition of any city council.
Right, that is correct. This was language I provided. Again, the plain intention here is to let the Rocky Neck Art Colony kind of take over the space and make good use of it. And Mark's going to kind of just let them do it as long as they carry their own costs. But if, you know, something along the lines of what you had talked about, P&D, a deed restriction, or some sort of perpetual condition is required, something that's in writing saying this has to be part of it, the language I provided, we believe is sufficiently broad to work out long-term, but also still match the concerns of making sure that, you know, it doesn't become a third apartment 18 months from now, once the relief is granted or something like that.
Thank you.
Okay, hold on. Councilor Gilman, then Councilor Cox.
So I'm just going to emote for a second because I'm the one that asked to reconsider this. But I want to just be clear that I think this is the most noble thing that I've heard from Mark Guterman. I think it's absolutely noble what he's trying to do. And I want so much to support it. But without the condition, with the amount of density that is in Rocky Neck right now, with some of our concerns about parking and the amount of space and all the details that Attorney Favazza has brought up, if we're not clear on the condition, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to support it. Council Pett is not going to be allowed to vote. And I'm not sure you have 6 votes. So I don't understand why we wouldn't just bring this back to subcommittee and make this a noble issue. It's discussion now, correct?
No, we're still in councilor questions. We haven't closed the public hearing for discussion yet. This is still councilor questions.
Okay.
I understand your intention.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna get to it. We're still at councilor questions. Councilor Cox.
Now I'm trying to remember what my question was.
All right.
I don't remember.
All right, we'll get back to you. So,
Councilor Blight, if I may, just to be clear, I appreciate everything the council's done tonight, and certainly, you know, we wouldn't want to rush this to a negative result.
Right.
I don't object either if we need to go back. I was just happy that you were, you know.
No, I'm glad we got to hear it. And
the permit open, let the neighbors speak.
Exactly.
Right. And if this council's not able to get it done tonight, you know, then that's the will of the council. And we will not, you know, be upset about that at all. We just appreciate the opportunity to speak with everybody.
Yeah.
And if there's a way to hammer it out, great. If not, that's okay too.
I agree with you, and I agree with Councilor Gilman. I think that we're gonna have to need a full city council for this, but we'll get to that point, you know, after we get to the committee report and we close the public hearing. So, Councilor Gilman, hold on one second. Councilor Cox was waiting on her memory to come back.
I'm just trying to process all the information that's being said and try to remember everything too. Councilor Favazza, you and I had a discussion regarding parking, and the ZBA decision in 1989 precluded us from tonight making parking part of our reason for denial of a special city council permit. Is that correct?
No. So the number of parking spaces, the specific parking plan, that is all ZBA jurisdiction. It was approved in 89. It was approved again in 2020. You still have section 1.8.3 where you get to take into traffic and safety concerns, right? In a broader sense, parking is a factor. I wouldn't ever say you're precluded from thinking about parking, but I would just say that in response to that, you know, the zoning board, which is the authority on specific parking, has twice now said this is fine. And so I would ask the council to, you know, if they were concerned about parking, defer to the fact that the zoning board who is in charge of parking has twice said this is okay and what's presented is sufficient. But I think you still analyze it as part of your 1.8.3 review.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Councilor Gilman.
So I have just a rule of procedure here that I just like to ask. If we if in the discussion, if it is brought up that we wish to refer it and there's a majority vote, wouldn't it be in our best interest for us not to close the public hearing, that we continue the public hearing? Because it's one of our options under section 25 of our rules of procedure. And I don't know why we would insist on closing the public hearing and doing a committee report right now, if that was something that we would want to continue. So I'm just asking that from a rule of procedure, Council.
So for a rule of procedure, if we were to get new information, we would have to reopen the public hearing and start from the beginning. Seeing that we will have maybe an amendment to this special counsel permit, where Attorney Favaza has offered a condition that would be considered new material. So it would get bounced back to planning and development, and then you guys would vote on the new condition, and then it would come back as a public hearing, new public hearing. So it's not, we're not going to continue this public hearing with the new information. So we'd have to re-advertise and come back as a new public hearing. Because what we advertised for tonight's meeting would be different from what we're advertising for the next public hearing with the information that we're going to receive. Do you understand?
I understand what you're saying, but I'm not sure. We've always added conditions on to votes that we have in front of us. I mean, I look at what we did for Gloucester Crossing and other permits, so I don't know why we'd have to go back and re-advertise.
Okay.
I agree with Councilor Gilman.
Okay, Joanne, can you do you want to touch on this? Do we continue this public hearing and send it back to planning and development, or do we close this one and reopen it as a new one with the new information?
You don't close this one unless he's changed in his sections that he's, requesting relief from, which he's not doing.
Okay.
What they're doing is probably sending it back to P&D and maybe putting a condition on what they previously voted on at P&D. So the P&D can rescind their vote from the previous meeting, and then after, or amend their, go back and amend their motion. But I wouldn't close this public hearing. That's my recommendation, because then you would have to re-advertise again.
Okay.
So if you want to refer it back to P&D, you can, and then just continue the public hearing to the November 24th meeting.
Okay. Yeah, typically we re-advertise for something like this. Not something like this, but for a special counsel permit, we would have to re-advertise if there was something major that was changed. Okay.
But I don't, yeah, I mean, just listening, not an expert, but I'm just saying you're not really changing anything major because he's not changing his zoning sections.
Understood. Councilor Holmgren.
I still don't see why we can't amend the original motion this evening. Maybe I'm just not understanding, but I don't see why we can't add amendments tonight.
Okay. Councilor Gilman and then Councilor Cox.
Yeah, Councilor Holgram, if Councilor Pett can't vote, and if I'm not comfortable voting because I think that we need to tweak it a little bit more, we could be without 6 votes to move forward. So my preference is to bring it back to P&D and allow us to kind of tweak this and get everything clean. So when we come back to continue the public hearing on November 24th, we will be prepared to move forward with a council vote. And we would have Barry Pett as part of this as well, because right now he's not part of that. I mean, I'm perfectly capable to make a motion in terms of what came out of subcommittee and add the amendment, but I think it's imperative that we continue the public hearing because I think we have a little bit more tweaking to do. Shall, must, I mean, I'm more comfortable tweaking this in subcommittee, and that's basically why I'm I reconsidered this. So
So Council Holmgren,
Thank you, Counselor.
we need 6 votes for a special council permit. And without
Mhm.
Councilor Pett and, he's been dropping in and out. And just to clarify earlier, under Robert's rules, a tie vote fails. So I didn't want to not have the public hearing or send it back to committee. I want to, we save face for planning and development and the city council and get it to this point so we can have this discussion, thoroughly vet it, and make our decision at this point, whether we have some conditions or we have some other things that we'd like to add to this. So I know we're still in councilor questions, but I understand where Councilor Gilman is coming from. And I hate to see this not pass for something as silly as a condition that we can bring it back in a couple of weeks and get back up here. So,
All right, thank you both. I appreciate it.
okay, Councilor Cox.
First of all, you have no idea who's going to be at the next meeting. It's the week of Thanksgiving. I'm traveling, so you can't guarantee, you can't just say that you're not going to have it based on one counselor. I think the presumption is that you're assuming that people are going to be against it with the condition. I think this is Attorney Favaza's decision to move forward or to have it go back to P&D, in which he just said that he was fine with it going back to P&D next week and then coming back before City Council on the 24th. There's just a lot of assumptions being made about who, what, when, and where people are going to be at the next City Council meeting. We don't even know if we have a quorum. We don't know if we have power. There's a lot of things that could go wrong. So I think we need to let it up to Attorney Favaza and his client to say, yes, I'm okay with it going back to P&D, or no, I'd like to push the vote.
Okay, so we haven't got to that point yet. We're still in councilor. We're still in the public hearing part of this at councilor questions. So when it comes to that point, we'll allow Attorney Favaza to voice his concern. So thank you, Councilor Cox. So councilor questions. Are there any other councilor questions? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing.
no,
No,
no.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to continue. I'm going to.
no.
All right. I'm going to continue the public hearing. I'm sorry. You're correct. Yeah, I'm going to continue the public hearing. Well, that's where we get into the
Councilor
weeds.
LeBlanc,
Yes.
we need to let Attorney Favaza decide if he wants to continue. You can't just declare a continuing unless we send it back to P&D.
Okay. I
Or
understand.
someone pulls a 211C.
So, Attorney Favaza, what would you like to do this evening? Would you like to proceed with the public hearing, or would you like to continue this?
Council, I have a point of order. I don't understand why we're asking the applicant to make a decision. This is the city council that is granting this permit. So Councilor Cox, I'm completely mystified in terms of why Attorney Favaza would make this decision. I'm sorry.
So I will respond to that. So this is Attorney Favaza. He has the right to continue this. I mean, bring it back to planning and development and agree what we talked about earlier. Or he could continue, agree to proceed with the vote this evening. Okay, so as a courtesy, I'm going to offer him this courtesy, whether he feels comfortable proceeding this evening, or if he feels comfortable bringing it back to planning and development. So that's my call this evening.
Not to belabor this, we are happy to bring this back to P&D. A no vote is for 2 years, a P&D 2-week break. That is okay with us. I'd hate to see Councilor Gilman not be on board. I think she's right there. I'm happy to work with her and her subcommittee next week to get everyone on the same page. So that's fine with me. If it's the will of the council to send this back to P&D, no complaints from us.
Okay, so I'm going to continue the public hearing until November 24th, 2020. We're going to send this back to planning and development for further review. Councilor Gilman?
And we need to vote to refer it back, correct?
Yes, you need to vote to refer it back and to continue
Okay.
to
So
November 24th.
So I move that we bring this back to P&D to be heard on November 18th, and I so move.
Second.
And
Been moved by Councilor Gilman, seconded by Councilor Holmgren. Any other discussion? All right, I'm gonna call for the roll
Counselor,
call.
can I just say one thing
Yes.
to support my motion? Thank you. I'd like Attorney Favaz's document that he sent out today in the afternoon to be part of our package so the public can all read it and understand what these proposed conditions are in the spirit of transparency. But thank you, counselors, for battling through this tonight. I appreciate it. And Attorney Favaza and Mark Guterman for standing tall, and let's get to the next step. So thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Counselor LeBlanc.
All right, is there anything else? All right, so this is tough because we had some technical difficulties, so it's a tough, you know, I mean, we may have, like Councilor Cox says, we may have technical difficulties on the next meeting also, but this is where we're at right now. So I will call for the roll call. Councilor Memhard to bring it back to planning and development. Continue it.
Yes.
Councilor Nolan,
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara,
Yes.
Councilor Pett wasn't part of this. Councilor Cox,
Yes.
Councilor Gilman,
Yes.
Councilor Holmgren,
Yes.
Councilor LeBlanc, yes. Councilor McCarthy.
Yes.
Motion to refer it back to planning and development passes on a roll call vote of 8 in favor, 1 technical difficulties. That's Councilor Pett. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Madam Clerk, next order of business, please.
Right, so do you just want to make an announcement that the public hearing is going to be continued to November 24th so we can have it on record, please?
Yes, the public hearing will be continued till November 24th, 2020.
Next order of business is public hearing 2020-031, the CPC off-cycle recommendation to appropriate $74,500 for the purpose of Stage 4 Park Advisory Committee and the Gloucester Public Works Department to support the landscape construction design project.
All right. Let's see here. Councilor Cox.
This is a public hearing.
All right, so it's yep, so I'm going to open the public hearing. I'm sorry. Open the public hearing is asked if there's anybody that'd like to speak in favor. All right, anybody like to speak in favor of the $74,500 for the Stage 4 park
Steve,
advisory?
sorry. Steve, it's Jill Cahill, sorry.
All right, that's okay.
I was a little distracted
No, that's okay. I think we all.
having some dinner. Sorry, I want to say I do believe one of the CBC chairs, I think Catherine was invited to attend as well, but if not,
I don't see it.
I'm more than happy to let you know that our team has worked closely with the Stage 4 Park Advisory Committee, the CPC and DPW. The goal is to just keep building upon the improvements at Stage 4 Park. And this recommendation is for the next step, the design of the next phase. The two Davids are here to talk to you about the actual project. And I think the CPC chairs are here to talk to you about the actual funding, but I'm happy to help in any way I can. We support this project.
All right, is there anybody else that'd like to speak in favor? All right, seeing none, is there anybody that would like to speak in opposition? All right, seeing none, is there any communications, Madam Clerk? Joanne, any communications?
There are none.
Okay, any
Coun-
council questions?
I think
Yeah.
Dave Benjamin and David Dow are here to speak in support, and I'm not sure if they're hearing us right now, but I just want to make sure before we get to council questions that
Right.
we've given that their opportunity to speak in support.
All right, David, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, would you like to speak in favor?
Sure, obviously, we're in favor of this. We filed the application to get this in an off cycle, so we will be ready for construction in the spring. We asked for 84,000. The city determined that we asked for 80,000. The city determined that we off cycle did not have 80. We had 74 to commit to it. So we're taking 5,500 from the revolving park fund, which we started to come up with the 80. This 80 will include a survey, give all the elevations and that sort of thing, which has never been done for the park, and a detailed plan of what our concept is all about. And from there, between now and next spring, we will have a contractor hopefully ready to go to work to do the actual construction of this park, which is obviously the continuation of the Lucy Davis, the Welcoming Center Park, and the reconstruction of the fort area itself. And we would appreciate your help in helping us continue to get the park squared away.
Thank you, David. All right, is there anybody else that'd like to speak in favor? Thank you, gentlemen. Madam Clerk, any communications?
There are none.
Any councilor questions?
Hi.
Councilor Pat?
Yes, it's coming to the Davids, and I'm doing it maybe as a counselor here, but at their public hearing at the Cape Ann Savings Bank, which I was in attendance at, and Jill Cahill, representing the city and community development, was there, and I offered a number of things to help with, which I was, not necessarily supported in, taking in some of that information, but I asked specifically to be involved in the design process moving forward as a primary user of that space, and asked to be notified of any and all meetings. And to date, I have heard zero from anyone on that meeting about anything about the plans or anything as my response as a user to that. And I'm disappointed.
All right, councilor questions. Is there any other councilor questions? All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and call for the committee report, please.
Thank you. Budget and Finance voted unanimously to recommend the City Council appropriate $74,500 from the Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee to provide off-cycle funding for the purpose of the Stage Fort Park Advisory Committee and the Gloucester Public Works Department to support the landscape construction design project. The appropriation will be allocated to the open space and recreation category and will be funded by up to $74,500 from the open space and recreation reserves in Fund 4510. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund, Open Space and Recreation Capital Projects Fund 5719, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Cox, seconded by Councilor Memhard. Is there any other discussion? Councilor Nolan?
To Dave and Dave, first we have Dave Dow, who's been instrumental in everything that's going up there in the last 10, 15 years. With the cannons restoration to other projects to making sure that the visitor center is appearing well. Dave Benjamin as well with the rest of the committee. I believe it's a very strong committee. This grant, excellent. It only starts the process to bring us where we need for the 400th. And on a personal level, I'd like to thank Dave Benjamin for the extra entertainment on Facebook during this COVID with your instrumental prowess. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Councilor Gilman?
Yeah, I want to echo Councilor Nolan. Dave and Dave, what a great duo. They just work so hard for Stage 4 Park and for the city. And from the bottom of my heart and for this community, thank you for your passion and your enthusiasm even through COVID right now. Here you are at a Zoom meeting, possibly your first one, or Dave Benjamin's doing musical performances, but it's definitely admirable. So thank you so much for everything that you do for the city.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Val. Councilor Holmgren and Councilor Pat.
I would like to echo what's been said. Thank you, David and David. I cannot wait to see what this money can do. And thank you so much for your care and your stewardship of our beautiful Stage Fort Park.
Thank you, Jen. Councilor Pat.
Yes, I want to make sure that neither one of the Davids think that I am not appreciative of all of their work up at the park. I absolutely am. And I've been entertained by David Benjamin on more than one instrument over the years, in many positive ways. So that's a wonderful thing. And again, David's work on the cannons and his devotion to doing this is great. I just want to remind people that there are many users of the whole park. The city, we have quite a gem there, working toward the 400th. And I hope we can all work together, to get this, everything to come to fruition for the best of the whole community. And thank you both.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anything else, councilors? All right, seeing none, I will call for the roll call. Councilor Memhard,
Yes.
Councilor Nolan,
Absolutely.
Councilor O'Hara,
Yes.
Councilor Pat.
Yes.
Glad you could vote with us tonight. Councilor Cox,
Absolutely, yes.
Councilor Gilman,
Yes.
Councilor Holmgren,
Yes.
Councilor LeBlanc, yes, 100%, and Councilor McCarthy.
Yes, thank you, Dave and Dave.
Yes, thank you, Dave and Dave. So motion passes on a roll call vote of 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Congratulations, guys. We're looking forward
you.
to the great work.
Thank you. Thank you all very, very much.
My pleasure, our pleasure. All right, Madam Clerk, next order of business, please.
Next order of business is for council vote to waive notice to abutters under Gloucester zoning ordinance section 1.11.4B pursuant to the initiation of a zoning amendment through a memorandum of the community development director requesting temporary extension of temporary zoning relief to businesses during COVID-19 through December 30th, 2021, to set the public hearing for that matter as November 24th, 2020, and to refer this matter to the planning board.
All right, so in regarding to the memorandum from the Community Development Director requesting an extension of the temporary zoning relief to businesses during COVID-19 through December 30th, 2021, that was referred out at the October 27th, 2020 City Council meeting to the Planning and Development Committee, that given that the notice of abutters in the city, this situation is impractical. So I move that the City Council waive the notice to abutters under the Gloucester zoning ordinance section 1.11.4 subsection B, that the council is asked to amend the zoning ordinance accordingly, to set the public hearing for the matter of November 24th, 2020, and refer the matter to this matter of the planning board. Councilor Gilman will second the vote. Councilor Gilman?
I'll second.
Well, you're the I did that because you're the chairman of the planning and development.
Thank you.
All right, so is there any other discussion on this? All right, seeing none, I will call for the roll call vote. Councilor Memhard,
Yes.
Councilor Nolan,
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara,
Yes.
Councilor Pat,
Yes.
Councilor Cox,
Yes.
Councilor Gilman,
Yes.
Councilor Holmgren,
Yes.
Councilor LeBlanc, yes, and Councilor McCarthy.
Yes.
Motion passes on a roll call vote of 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Madam Clerk, next order of business, please.
Next order of business is councilor's request to the mayor.
All right, Councilor O'Hara.
I want to extend a sincere thank you and congratulations to Joe Ancino's clerk's office and dozens and dozens of volunteers for making the November 3rd election a screaming success. Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you, Jamie. Councilor Memhard.
Yes, just following up on that, but specifically to question number 3, I'd like to congratulate our school committee and the school building committee for the vote, moving us ahead and approving Gloucester's funding for our new elementary school. I think it's worth noting that of our 10 wards and precincts and 17,424 votes out of 22,000 registered voters, 3 of our precincts did not approve the new school. Ward 1-1 was down by 7 votes. Ward 3-2 was down by 57 votes. And Ward 4-1 was down by 40 votes. But overall, the motion passed by 52% of our voters. It was a really spectacular endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Councilor Peck.
Yes, couple of things. First of all, again, I'd like to congratulate and thank the city clerk, Joanne, and the entire staff and all the volunteers for tremendous work to make the election a success here in Gloucester. We didn't have any of those questions come up that came up across the country, and I wanted to, congratulate them and thank them for that. And I wanted to also thank the people for their vote again on question 3, and to note that we did get that support in Ward 2. And I think a lot of opposition came out of Ward 2, and understandably, that's part of the discussion. But it did pass through on Ward 2, where I think there's going to be a lot of, we'll see what happens, and as we move forward, whether that's affecting, the Ward 2 neighborhood, and what else we can do to help them move forward. And I know Council President LeBlanc and I have had some brief discussions about a couple things that we might be able to do.
Thank you, Barry. Councilor McCarthy.
I don't think you can mention Joanne and her staff enough this week with the election, so I'm mentioning them also.
Thank you, John. Councilor Nolan.
I'd like to also thank the clerk for all their work, all the volunteers, the voters for doing what they did. But I really want to thank the people of Gloucester with our COVID numbers and how we've recovered from a bad situation, and how hard the Board of Health and the administration has worked on this. And keep things up. We're going to be fine, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Council Holmgren.
I would love to echo everything that's been said. I can't say enough about the city clerk's office. I have heard nothing but wonderful things. All the volunteers, thank you. And Councilor Nolan is right. We have worked very hard as a city to get back into the green. So thank you, and thanks especially to the Health Department and the Board of Health for all of your efforts. On that note, I actually do have a request to the mayor from a constituent wondering if there's any plan to have COVID testing for Gloucester prior to Thanksgiving or even during the Thanksgiving break. And this question was asked because there will be more college students in the area. And some of them are being tested weekly, but many more are not. And considering the issue of the Airbnb that was brought up earlier this evening by a couple of concerned constituents, I think it would be worth it if the mayor's office could possibly reach out to the governor's office again and ask if testing would be warranted. And I do also want to say the city of Gloucester had its first Human Rights Commission meeting on yesterday evening, and it went very well and with a lot of support from city administration. I think these volunteers are going to do a wonderful job. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jen. Councilor Cox.
Nothing for the mayor's office, just a big congratulations and thank you for getting us through the election to the clerk's office. Everybody in there was bending over backwards and making sure everything got done. So huge props to them.
Thank you. Councilor Gilman.
Yeah, I will echo what everyone said about the clerk's office. Thank you. Shout out. Amazing. I also wanted to just give a shout out to our new head of the Rose Baker, Elise Sinagra, because she's just been working so hard during COVID to offer seniors as many great programs at their home through Zoom, at parks. And the momentum is just excellent. I was on our monthly board meeting this morning, and it's just they're working so hard. And I know the mayor's still on the call, and we know how near and dear all the seniors are to her. And I mean, just a Halloween drive-through for the seniors that was over capacity. You know, we served as many seniors as possible. So great spirit on the Council on Aging board and to our new leader. And I just wanted to mention that. And the only other thing is just something very small, but I wanted to just ask if it would be possible to consider leaving the gate open at Good Harbor Beach at least through the end of March on nice days, just because the construction on Whittam Street has taken all the spots that are on Whittam Street, and they're all filled with workers now and trucks. And I just think we're trying to get our people out and moving and doing things that are healthy but safe, and walking the beach during the months where typically the gate is closed based on lack of parking now. It would be great if we could at least consider that. I don't know what the answer is, Mayor, but it would be nice if we could just consider keeping that gate open. And I know this past week with the seasonable weather, that the gates have been open, and that's been very appreciated by a lot of dog walkers and walkers in general. So thank you.
Thank you, Val. And before we leave, we do have our city clerk on the call still. So Joanne, would you like to say something about your election and how everything went?
Sure. I'd like to thank the counselors for their kind words on behalf of myself and the staff, and also for the support of the community, the administration, and anyone who came out to volunteer and assist some counselors also. We still have unofficial results. The official results will be certified by November 18th. We are still doing hand count votes of whatever came in between November 3rd and November 6th. So we hand counted them yesterday, and now we'll be entering in by Friday those figures. We still have to wait for overseas ballots by 5 o'clock on November 13th. So we will be counting those November 16th. So hopefully by November 18th, which is the deadline by 5 o'clock for the state to certify the elections. But it's during COVID, I'm just so surprised and grateful that the community came out and volunteers to volunteer, whether, you know, stuffing envelopes, working the polls, volunteering their time, and even poll workers, getting new poll workers. And I'm very appreciative and humbled for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. You did a really great job. Councilor Pat?
Yeah, just one addition for you, Council President, and for myself. Obviously, tomorrow's Veterans Day, and I want not only to wish all veterans a happy day, but I want to remind everyone that the Office of Veteran Services is doing a live Zoom tomorrow presentation with musical entertainment. I don't know if David Benjamin's going to be there, but anyway, so I'd encourage everyone to, you know, come watch the festivities for the day. Remember all of our veterans tomorrow.
Thank you, Barry. And for my Veterans Day gift, I would like my phone not to ring for 5 minutes. So, but on that note, we do have the mayor on the call, and she may be willing to answer some of these questions that we had this evening about maybe some COVID testing and possibly the gate. Mayor Taken?
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Let me put this. Okay, so you can see me. Love my background. Even the waves are moving. You don't want your phone to ring. I want to be on an island. So first of all, I want to thank the governor. See, you get COVID testing when we're in the red. Because we had an isolated case and because we knew what was going on in the cluster that we had and we took control, I asked the governor for emergency help because we knew that the cluster where it was could travel. They had more than one job and it could contain if we did the testing immediately so we can actually help the families. We are not in the red, we're in the green, we're back, and which is great, and bravo to everyone and my team and the Board of Health and the screeners. Vanessa's on here and she'll let you know that some of the screenings that we do, they still don't do in other communities. We had someone who tested positive who lived in another community and they never even told his employer here. And then they end up testing positive. So we, yes, that's happening, people. So we are working around the clock to contain that, to stop that. And those areas really need, all the red areas, it's growing. So they need the testing sites. We can still go to Salem and have it done. You still have CVS here. As far as your college students, and we understand that, we're very concerned about that. That was one of the big issues with Karen Carroll and Ben Loomis on superintendent. So we are looking at that. We're working on that. Let's hope that we never have to have an emergency situation. I'd rather give someone transportation than have an emergency situation. As far as the gates were open this weekend because we got numerous calls. We understand that the weather is crazy. You have to understand now, the more the gates are open, the more people come from out of town. We cannot go on the beaches and tell these people they need to wear masks. We have people who are getting pulled by other dogs, because don't forget, beaches are open for the dogs. It was before COVID. They have a right too. And so people are walking their dogs, and there's days that you don't have leashes. And so when the dogs go someplace else, the owner actually has to go get the dog. It's jumping on someone else. We get calls that this dog approached my daughter. I don't have a mask. This one didn't have this. And it's hard. We are not policing the beaches. And then the messes that comes after with the DPW to go clean that when we're trying to prepare, believe it or not, for the snow. We have things that we're still preparing. We still have roads that need to be, maintained and fixed and upgraded. So we're doing a lot of work. Unfortunately, we look at the weather, and if we think that, we are going to be bombarded, it's safer that they do not illegally park everywhere. We're not going to announce it when we have it open. We tell, people if they call and they're Gloucester residents, go ahead. Witham Street, we understand, but a lot of people who live in that area can walk down there. I know that everyone prefers, Gloucester, or Good Harbor Beach or Wingisheep Beach, but don't forget the Stage 4 Park is beautiful for walking too. We got to wear masks. David and David, thank you so much. I'm hoping you live in one household because I didn't see you with masks, so don't forget to wear your mask next time. And so you know what, we all have to wear our mask. We have to set examples. So I want to actually acknowledge that as far as the Airbnb, we'll control everything. We look at everything, and we cannot go in the household and say, prove that you live here or don't live here. If someone's telling us they have residents there, we, just like everyone else, if you tell us that you live at this, we are looking. That was one of my biggest concerns this whole COVID period, was the Airbnbs and where they were, because the neighbors surrounding would say, I thought it was just for frontliners, and I thought was just for essential workers. And we check, we have that, but don't forget, we are limited of what we're doing. It was our school nurses are back with the schools, yay, and we're working very closely, but we're short-staffed as far as Board of Health, same thing with the city clerk and everything else. So we're just asking people, breathe. We went through March, we went through, we went through 4 seasons of COVID. And so we're trying to recalculate, because I know everyone's enjoying the weather. And even though I have palm trees behind me, I'm still worried about our homeless. What's going to happen what's happening after 9:30. We're working on that. So if anyone has concerns, especially when you get cold, then you're going to come back and say, well, we'd like to hear a presentation from the mayor about what she's doing with the homeless. We are working with everything. Our biggest fear, I'm going to tell you, was that because of the library was closed and because of the senior center, where they're going to go for warming stations during the day. we are looking at all that. We're working with the other mayors to see who's going to regionalize. So we have that. I ask you to be a little bit patient because the fact is we just got over an election and they and the city clerk's office, everyone else is exhausted. All you came in to pitch in, so thank you so much. The volunteers were amazing. The Board of Health was amazing on staying on the issues and make sure that people were social distancing. The DPW to clean up the spots that they let us use, like, our ladies and the schools and everything else, and the police for escorting it. I mean, you, and all considering, bravo, City of Gloucester, bravo, really, because you know what? We can argue back and forth, but I'll tell you right now, we protected one another too. So thank you all to the residents. Enjoy our Veterans Day. Thank you for all the veterans who serve this country. I really appreciate it. And God bless you all. Have a wonderful day tomorrow.
Thank you, Mayor. And my final request to the mayor would be to add Marshfield Street back on the resident-only summer list for the no parking. They were taken off of it, and we'd like to see them put back on there. So it made a huge improvement to the lifestyle of the residents up off of Bond Street. It's in Ward 3, so.
Absolutely. Steve, if you would email Chip on that one so we can conclude it. Thank you so much. And yes, absolutely. And that's what we said. While you're looking at roads and you're looking at streets, remember, before you know it, we're going to be back and swimming again. So make sure you have, Val, I know I received yours and all these other streets. See if we might, have forgotten a street. Ask your ward. I know that you, before we go through, all of you asked for ward meetings. You're going to talk to your residents to see which one. So we're waiting on that one. So that's great. And remember that it's seasonal. And also, I ask a favor of you. When you go around this winter, think of what streets really that, we have off-street parking because it's snow. What streets really should be just in the winter one way to make it easier to plow, easier to get up and down, and easier to control. Remember, we looked at some of the streets before. I know Council Cox in Ward 2 was looking at every angle. I mean, she did a little too much, but anyways, to look at every angle and everything to see what we could do to improve the roads, because the fact it's hard to plow some of these streets. They're old, they're narrow, and they're not going to get any wider. And, we want to make sure that we can go up and down easily. So I always said that to people, look at your roads, see what can be, and work and send it to us. And the DPW will say, yes, that would be a good idea. No. And we can do it just for and Rockport does it too. Everyone does it just for the winter months. And you can figure out what dates you want, and we just make that. And people will know and they'll appreciate it. Everyone's going to complain in the beginning. We all love to complain, including myself. I've always hollered at Steve about Kent Circle, but we're all working on it. We're doing great and it's fine. So you know what? It's always the beginning of something new. After that, we're fine. So again, with that, thank you and have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I never heard of Kent Circle before. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. I'm just kidding. So yeah, we'll all be swimming in snow soon. So we're looking forward to that. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, so I'll call for the roll call. Councilor Memhard?
Yeah, I'll vote for that.
Yep. Councilor Nolan?
Yes, sir.
Councilor O'Hara?
Yes.
Councilor Pat?
Yes.
Councilor Cox?
Yes.
Councilor Gilman?
Yes.
Councilor Holmgren?
I guess.
Yes. We can stay all night. Councilor LeBlanc? Yes. And Councilor McCarthy?
Yes.
All right. We have a motion to adjourn, passes on a roll call vote of 9 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Vanessa. We'll see you soon. Take care.